Welcome to today's live stream. Today we're going to be looking at two main stories. One, we're going to be looking at Trump's recent trade deal with the EU and with Japan and what both sides are saying about it. And of course, one side is going to find everything wrong with the trade deal. And we're going to examine that and look at the facts. And we're also going to look at the spate of violence. There are several violent attacks that happened over the weekend. 3 in particular, and I think that there's something we can learn from these 3 incidents, and I want us to do a deep dive, and just talk about some of the things that personally I noticed, that took place with those 3 incidents. And maybe if you would like to join in the conversation, you can always drop a chat in the chat, and we will communicate and share ideas in that medium. We are going to be doing something fresh from now on. I started this on the last stream on Sunday, and I want to keep it going because I believe that this is a huge part of helping us understand how things work in the world. And that is, I want us to start reading scripture. So we're going to be opening up with the scripture of the day, all right? And we're going to start out with the book of Proverbs chapter 22, verse 3. All right? The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. This is a very instructive scripture. I used to quote it to myself while I was in college, and I'll say, look, someone who is smart sees trouble coming and takes a different road. We're going to see this play out in the news items that we're going to be discussing today. Now, I also want to be including something else in our conversations, and that is on this day in history. We're going to be looking at today in history. I like looking at history because it teaches us a lot about what's going on today. Today in history, in 1958, on July 29, 1958, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration was established. NASA was established on this day in 1958. All right, so the backstory is that because the administration of U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower was so criticized because the Soviet Union had launched the first man-made satellite to orbit Earth, that was the Sputnik 1, on October 4th, 1957, he signed the legislation on July 29th, 1958, that created NASA. And that's good to know. You know, most presidents react to criticism. Okay, like Donald Trump does react to criticism, and we'll look at his story first. So first things first, we're going to dive into the story of the day. Okay, the 2 stories. Remember, you can leave your comments in the chat. I want us to have a conversation around these talking points. So let's go.
To White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich reporting live from Edinburgh, Scotland. Hi, Jackie.
Hey, Martha. The president is still riding high on this deal the White House is touting as historic structural reform. The EU agreeing to open its markets and also purchase $750 billion in American energy and commit $600 billion in private investments in the U.S. by 2028, all in exchange for a 15% baseline tariff that covers everything, including automobiles. The president previously put the chances of this deal happening at 50-50, and the EU commissioner called it a very tough negotiation.
I just want to congratulate you. I think it's great that we made a deal today instead of playing games and maybe not making a deal at all. I think it's, I'm going to let you say, but I think it's the biggest deal ever made.
It's a huge deal. It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. It's 15% tariffs across the board, all inclusive.
Today, the president is with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who hopes to improve the deal that he clinched with the U.S. back in May. The UK has a 10% baseline tariff, but steel is subject to 25%, albeit lower than the 50% Trump imposed on the rest of the world. The president said we'll know pretty soon here whether steel tariffs come down further. But the answer he really wants is from Vladimir Putin on whether he's going to make a peace deal.
All right, so President Trump has signed a deal, a business deal, a trade deal with the EU. And last week, he signed another trade deal with Japan. And let's see what the, both sides are saying about this deal. Okay. Oh, goodness. Let's see what both sides are saying about this deal. So US and EU agree on a trade deal, says Donald Trump. And this is the headline. Now, I use ground news when I want to basically see what both sides are saying, and I would like to recommend them so that you can actually get what both sides are saying and then think for yourself. So here's a summary of the conversation. The US and EU agreed to a trade deal where European exports to the US will be hit with a 15% tariff, lower than the 30% threatened, but higher than the tariff-free trade the EU offered. So the EU is asking for tariff-free trade, but it's been said that for years they've been putting tariffs on US products. So suddenly they want to, have a tariff-free conversation. Now, I don't know if the reports that I've heard or read are correct, but there are some reports that are saying that the so-called tariffs that the Trump administration claims that the EU is putting on American products is made up. We'll take a look at that when we look at what both sides are saying. The deal did not achieve a breakthrough on steel, aluminum, or copper, which are still facing a 50% tariff. And the average tariff on EU exports to the US will rise from 1.2% last year to 17% last year. So is US steel, aluminum, and copper facing the 50% tariff, or is it EU steel, aluminum, and copper? So economists said that the economic outlook has deteriorated. For who? Is it for the EU or for the American people? All right. Now for those of you who are watching my video for the first time, I am not a talking head. I don't have an opinion per se. I just look at the news and I just say, okay, what does this mean? And does it make sense? I'll tell you if it makes sense to me or if it doesn't. Sometimes people would, lean one way because of the news source that it's coming from, but I'll try very hard, to basically look at the facts and listen to the argument. And if there's any sense in the argument, then I will lean in the direction of common sense. So they're saying that the economic outlook has deteriorated, with growth in the EU likely to drop by 0.2%. So this is EU or European economists, not American economists. And while the US appears to be the winner, uncertainty still hangs over the US economy. And this is a center position, okay? Right. So uncertainty looms over, still hangs. Okay, so that's the argument. Now let's see what the right is saying. The headlines on the right are saying Commerce Secretary Lutnick celebrates Trump's monster EU trade deal as huge win for America. Trump's trade deal has humiliated the EU. This is what right-leaning media outlets are saying. The left-leaning media outlets are saying drug prices are likely to rise with tariffs on the EU. And Trump's new EU trade deal, okay, that's an explanation. European imports to see 15% tariffs after Trump. Yeah, so they are basically saying the same thing, but in their own way. Is this a winner for the Trump administration or a loser? I think it's a win. He he campaigned on tariffs and he is delivering on tariffs. So what does that mean for the American people? A few people think that the tariffs are going to increase the cost of living for Americans. However, Trump has said that based on the projected collections in tariffs, that there is a possibility that the American people will be receiving rebates. So we're going to see if this happens. This is just 6 months in, and we have 3.5 years to go of all this. So we will be taking a look at what the Trump administration actually does with these policies. Will they be winners or will they be losers? The left-leaning outlets can't say anything outrightly bad about the trade deal. I saw some comments on CNN when we looked at the report from CNN on Sunday. There were some commenters who were very big on telling Trump to go golfing at his own expense, but he was there on business and he signed a multi-billion-dollar deal for the American people. So in my opinion, I think he earned the right to play golf that morning before closing the deal, or was it after? I'm not sure. Right, so don't forget to let me know what you think about this story in the comment section. I think that this is yet another huge win for the Trump administration. Donald Trump has done what he said he would do while he was on the campaign trail. He said that he was going to put tariffs on countries that had historically been very unfair to American businesses. Now, when you listen to the media talk about how tariffs are bad and how Trump is engaging in a trade war, you have to look at it from a business perspective. There are business people who benefit from zero tariffs on countries like China. And I'm talking about businesses in the United States. They benefit from it because they can make their products cheaper in China and India and then bring them in at dirt cheap prices. However, how does that affect local businesses? And that's the question. I've lived in a country where it appears that the government favors foreign businesses more than it does local businesses. It favors rich businesses than startups. And every time startups begin to gain traction, the government brings in policies to cripple the momentum of startups. So that's not good for a business environment. It's not good. I've seen it destroy an economy, a thriving economy in Nigeria. And seeing that people don't understand that when you bring in these policies that help local businesses do well and get business, or get business, and then when more business comes to them, there are jobs for the citizens of the country, it's a good thing. Yes, it may temporarily increase the cost of goods, but in the long run, the economy becomes stronger and prices, go down as a result because of competition. That's what happens with the free market. Well, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section. All right, in the comment section. So let's go on to the next story. We've talked about the consequences of tariffs and how tariffs have either a short-term or a long-term effect, and how we should give the Trump administration time so that we can see if there is a benefit to the tariffs that have been imposed by the Trump administration, or no tariffs, or no benefits. Are there benefits? No benefits. This next story that we're going to be exploring is disturbing. Okay, over the weekend, and I saw this story on Sunday, but I didn't want to immediately jump on the story because I wanted to be sure about the facts, and it was a Sunday. I had just gotten home from church, and I was like, okay, I just need to just do a different live stream on something else that doesn't require so much fact checking, because all the facts had not come in. So there were 3 violent incidents that happened over the last couple of days. There was the shooting at Manhattan. There was a knife attack that took place at a Walmart, and then there's the incident that took place in Cincinnati with a couple that were, I wouldn't want to use the word lynched, but they were attacked by a crowd of predominantly black people. And I saw a bit of that footage. It was quite disturbing. And one of the content creators that I follow was reacting to the video, and there were conversations going on about that content. And of course, there's a question about race. If this was a crowd of white people doing that to a black couple, would the news coverage have been different? Because it took several days for mainstream media to cover that attack. And when several people tried to ask Grok why mainstream media hadn't reported on that story, Grok said that story was that video was an incident that took place sometime in the past, and it wasn't current. So there was a lot of question about why that story wasn't handled properly. So we're going to look at the New York City situation and the update on that situation, and we'll talk about it briefly. We're going to look at the issue of the brawl that took place in Cincinnati, and then we're going to look at the Walmart situation. We're going to see something different that took place at the Walmart situation that didn't happen at these other situations, and we're going to talk about it. It's going to be controversial. It's going to be controversial because my position might not sit well with a bunch of you out there. Okay, my position might not feel right with a bunch of you out there for very obvious reasons. Okay, so let's dive into the New York story. Well, wow. Yeah. Mm. You know, it's frightening that people get up and go to work and they don't expect that something as horrific as this would happen to them while they're minding their business and trying to do their jobs, and someone simply walks into the building and begins to shoot. It's disturbing, it's horrifying, but let's keep listening. What? Hang on. He went through the building, shot up the place, and then ended himself. That's tragic.
And unleashed hell yesterday evening.
You know, I totally forgot that I hadn't switched over. I apologize to you guys who are watching. Please forgive me.
And in the course of that, he murdered 4 New Yorkers. He murdered the father of 2, as you referenced earlier, who, to give you just a little bit of context, and it's important for your viewers, I retired out of the 47th Precinct as a detective. He swam against the tide. If you recall the Summer of Love, when 1,000 businesses burned to the ground, 700 officers were hospitalized, he elected to put his hand up and fight the good fight against good and evil. Every other officer was at the headquarters retiring or quitting because they didn't want to stay on for it. They didn't want the defunding the police, the disgusting rhetoric. The folks that were giving him the finger, he put his hand up. He joined to fight the good fight. And that's absolutely important for your viewers to recognize and acknowledge. The time of his joining was relatively small relative to turnout.
To that point, our colleague Paul Morrill.
Yeah, so There have been conversations going on for the last 5 years about defunding the police in certain states in the US, and I don't know if that conversation or that rhetoric is coming from people who are not informed or people who just want chaos to rule the streets in those cities that are calling for the police to be defunded. Okay, now this is the story. Someone walks into a building and it took the life of an off-duty police officer, and in the end the man ended himself, but of course he had already caused some damage, and that is very, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Now let's look at another story, but here are my thoughts on this story. And this is where the controversy will come in. Okay, I'm giving you fair warning that my position may be controversial. Okay, I just read scriptures a few minutes ago when we started the live stream, and then I'm about to say something that is very controversial. States and cities like New York have swallowed wholeheartedly the doctrine of gun control. And when you have an individual strolling through a building with an automatic rifle like this gentleman was doing, and you can be rest assured that out of all of the people in that building, if maybe 0 owned guns, owned or had a gun in their possession at that time. So in communities and cities where you're not permitted to defend yourself, these are the kinds of stories that you see. And this report was this morning. Within the next few days, you're going to see ambulance chasing politicians who look for tragic incidents like this, and they will begin to sing the song of gun control. New York City has possibly the strictest gun control laws in the United States, maybe with California as a close second, or they're both tying for first. These two cities have some of the strictest gun control laws on their books. And how is it that even after all of this work has been put into keeping people from owning guns and having concealed carry in the streets and so on, you still have tragic incidents like this happening? And the default is we didn't have enough gun control. The people in the building did not have the means of defending themselves. The security operatives usually aren't as well armed as the assailants who invade these spaces and cause these tragic incidents to unfold. It's disturbing. Now, do I think that unfettered access to firearms is a good thing? I don't think so. I think that, yes, you need to qualify, you need to get the necessary training, and then you need to be able to have concealed carry for your own protection, or at least as a deterrent. I've heard people who live in Texas and they say that the drivers in Texas are very polite. Why? Because Texas is a concealed carry state. Everyone carries, everyone is packing. The grandma who is driving her sedan is packing. You can't just pull up to anybody and try to mouth off or be unruly. Everyone is packing. So that kind of state that allows concealed carry and that has very moderate and reasonable gun laws allows for some sanity. That's my controversial take on this. The next story, or the next video within this 3-part story, is this. Now we're going to let the video tell the story, okay? And now I need you guys to let me know your thoughts in the chat. All right, if you don't like my take on this, let me know in the chat. But do I own firearms? I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that. But I believe in your ability to defend yourself. I believe in your ability to defend the ones you love, and to do it legally. And that means that when you go out, you need to go through the necessary regulations and trainings and everything. Observe gun safety at home. Do everything you can to be safe. However, it's my argument that there is a line that connects these kinds of wanton public gun violence incidents to cities and states that have very strict gun control laws on the books. That's my take. So let's listen to this story, and then I'll give you my take on how this connects with this first story.
Unbelievably vicious video. This is very tough to watch. I got to warn you. In Cincinnati. This man was.
So if this had happened in a predominantly white space, and you had 2 white men ganging up to beat up a black man and his spouse, there would be outrage. I just want to say that there will be outrage, and that story would run for months, not just days or weeks, for months.
Beaten in the street in Cincinnati over the weekend. The police say 5 suspects are facing charges. They're asking others to turn themselves in. Then a woman who tried to defend him also was punched and knocked out cold by a young man on the street. And as I said before, one person called 911 in this whole crowd. They're all too concerned about getting this whole thing on video so they can post it on their stupid phones. National correspondent Brian Yanis reports live here in New York. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Martha. Well, we just got disturbing new video with a different angle of this vicious attack that unfolded at 3 a.m. on Saturday in Cincinnati. It appears to show a verbal confrontation. Then you see a white man in a white shirt slap a black man in a red shirt. Punches are then thrown and the brawl ensues. The white man is punched and kicked repeatedly by black men and women. This new video also shows two other white men getting beat up. Horrifically, another video shows a woman being knocked unconscious, blood on her face after she was sucker punched by a man. Incredibly difficult to watch. Police have not said how or why this brawl started.
So I saw this video on Sunday, and it's hard to watch, and it's hard to justify that kind of that kind of violence. You have a crowd of people. It was a free-for-all. Everyone was attacking these white people, and the crowd surrounding them didn't move to stop the violence. They pulled out their phones. Now, it's 50-50, okay? It's a catch-32. Is it catch-22 or 32? I think it's 22. If they didn't pull out their phones, no one would see this. Okay, so there's that. However, the people who surrounded the crowd doing this could have prevented some of this from happening by holding back the violent parties. I don't know what happened. I don't know if the man deserved the altercation, if he started it, but it is wrong for a crowd of people to gang up on an individual and beat them to a pulp. So I just want to say that it is crazy, it is wrong, and it is disturbing that this wasn't covered until there was outrage on the internet about the fact that mainstream media wasn't paying attention to this. It was private content creators who talked about this starting from Sunday morning. They began to talk about this on Sunday morning. They began to talk about it on X and ask the question, why isn't mainstream media talking about this story? And suddenly it became a thing. Now, the updates are coming in about there have been some arrests, which is good to know. But let's hear some more about what Fox has to say about this, and then we'll go to the third story. And then I'm going to give you a tie-in on what all of these three stories tell us. And I hope you will consider leaving a chat to let me know your thoughts about this.
Cincinnati's police chief says alcohol consumption played a significant role, characterizing it as a sudden dispute following a verbal altercation.
So they are trying to blame alcohol consumption, and I would say yes, in part. However, when you're inebriated, it loosens your inhibitions. It basically removes your inhibitions, and you feel comfortable doing things that you would not normally do when you're in your sound mind. However, those things that you do are things that you wish you could do, but you don't do it because society will frown on it. I don't know if I'm rambling. I feel like I'm rambling. The point is, I think the alcohol that they consume reveal who they really are. It just reveals who they really are. This is who they are. And without law enforcement and rules to keep these people in check, this is what society will devolve into. People who just want to walk up to you if they feel like is justified, maybe you looked at them funny, said something they didn't like, a crowd would surround you and do this to you in the street.
Astoundingly, there were 100 people there, but only one person called 911. The Trump administration's Department of Justice suggesting hate crime charges could be filed. Quote, our federal hate crimes laws apply to all Americans. We at Civil Rights at DOJ will monitor closely how local authorities handle this attack. Vice President J.D. Vance, who's from Ohio, reacting.
We have got to make great American cities safe again for families and children. If you want to take your wife or your children out for a meal, you shouldn't be worried about street violence. And the only way to destroy that street violence is to take the thugs who engage in that violence and throw their asses in prison.
Martha, 5 people have been charged. More are expected, but so far they have announced 0 arrests. So we'll see. We'll get an update as we get it.
Well, a lot of people know who all these individuals are. And as you say, it started with an altercation on both sides. But what happened?
All right. So I think arrests have been made. I saw an update earlier, but I wanted to go back to actually watch the coverage of the story and talk about it. So what do you think about this story? I don't know what exactly caused the altercation. Yes, there was an argument. And usually when people go out on Saturday nights and they're out drinking, they're out having fun, things like this tend to happen. You're talking to someone and you feel like they deserve bad language, and then you give them bad language, and then a fight starts. So that's the nightlife. Okay, however, this should not be tolerated. This should not be allowed. Let's keep watching to see what eventually happens with this story. And then finally, let's look at this incident that took place at a Walmart. Yes, hello DJ Zephy. Hi there. I'm watching the chats. So what do you think? So just leave it in the chat and then I will, we'll talk about it. I just want to go through the stories and then we'll have this conversation around how all 3 stories tie in. All right, so let's talk about this final story and then we'll tie everything in. And then of course, I've told you my thoughts about concealed carry. and we're going to just talk about it briefly. So let's go.
Drop it! Drop the call the police. Throw the knife that way! Throw it away! Throw it away! Hey, he hasn't dropped it! Hey now!
I mean, I might have to move to Michigan. When your neighbors stick up for you like that, turning into heroes, stepping in to help subdue the suspect accused of stabbing people at that Walmart in Michigan on Saturday. 11 people were wounded. 1 remains in serious condition, although expected to pull through. We pray. That suspect is now facing terrorism charges. Mike Tobin in Traverse City, Michigan. Mike.
And Harris, there was an active court order to pick up the suspect in the Walmart stabbing attack, issued a little shy of 24 hours before he allegedly struck here at the Walmart in Traverse City. His name is Bradford James Gilley, and over the last 19 years, he generated some 26 criminal charges in Emmett County, Michigan alone, including 2016 when he was charged with disinterment and mutilation of dead bodies.
Look, I honestly believe that people don't just wake up and commit crimes. There's a history and it starts from the home. It starts from the home. I don't believe that he just woke up one day and decided to go bad. It started somewhere. Find out if he had a proper home. Was he adopted? Did he go through foster care? I mean, it always starts when people are younger. That's how these things start. And you can see that he already had a rap sheet. And I'm conflicted. And like I said, I just read the Bible to you guys just a few minutes ago. And I'm conflicted because when you have people in society who do things like this, we just watched the other video. And then now we're watching this. This guy has a rap sheet. And then he decides to go to Walmart and to attack people with a knife. And he attacks 11 people before one person who is armed, okay, stops him. Now, this one person is a veteran, and veterans are comfortable around firearms. Again, back to my controversial take on this. I think more people should consider getting trained in gun safety. I'll just put it at that. Get trained in gun safety. And then I would say live in a city where concealed carry is allowed, if you want to, because we've seen what happened in New York. Let's wrap up this story. Keep your comments coming. We're going to talk about it.
Malicious destruction of tombs. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity and reportedly diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. He also had criminal mischief cases.
But so he's diagnosed to have some mental instability, but he knew enough to drop the knife when he was confronted with an escalation of force. Let me call it that. I'm trying to be very YouTube friendly. He dropped the knife, he recognized the escalation of force, and he dropped the knife. Does that sound like someone who is mentally deficient to you? Let me know in the comment section or in the chat. Does that sound like someone who doesn't know what he's doing? I agree that there are people who are mentally unstable that are challenged. But what I don't agree with is that when people show an awareness that if they meet, and let me just use the very politically correct term because I'm on YouTube as well. When you meet an escalation of force, you back down. When people react that way, it's very clear that judgment of temporary insanity or whatever it is, the lawyers get them off on, is false, is wrong. Someone is insane because they do not respond to typical stimuli. They don't respond to compassion. They don't respond to fear. They are deemed a danger, not just to themselves, but to those around them, because they don't observe the same norms as everyone else. He clearly understands what a gun can do to him, and he dropped the knife.
Cases in Duval County, Florida. The Grand Traverse County Sheriff knew he was dealing with a mental health case right away.
The suspect has had prior law enforcement contact, and whether or not there's a mental health component, my personal opinion, as I previously stated, was anytime someone commits an incident like this, there has to be some sort of mental crisis taking place of some sort.
All right. Do you agree with him? Let's talk about this. Do you agree with him? Before I tell you what I think. Do you agree with him? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that is always the case. Let me rephrase that, because I know I'm speaking to a broad group of people. I don't think that everyone who goes out into the world and does this has a mental issue. There is such a thing as evil. And when we put lipstick on evil and try to make it look civilized and say that this is a mental illness, and then you have activists who try to water down the legal system, because the legal system is meant to serve as a deterrent to insanity like this. So I don't agree with this take. In my opinion, I don't agree. You might. It is true that there are people who have done things and they have been truly insane. You have not seen insane people. In Nigeria, insane people, all right, and this is going to be crude. Insane people walk around with rags. They eat out of the dumpster. They relieve themselves in public without shame. They talk to themselves. They are out of it. Like I said, people who are truly mentally ill do not observe basic human norms. So when someone has the presence of mind to see that a gun is being pointed at them and they know to drop the weapon, I don't think they qualify as insane. That is my take. Let me know if you're on my side of things or if you think differently, but I think that counts as someone who is to a large degree in their sound mind. And because they've been allowed for years to do this kind of thing and get away with it, you have lawyers who plead insanity, and then we have liberal judges who agree to those pleas and give very watered down sentences. You have people who go through life skating through the legal system until they commit truly heinous crimes.
Now, the weapon is identified as a folding knife with a 3.5-inch blade. A group of citizens confronted Gilley in the parking lot. One of them, Derek Perry, reportedly a Marine veteran, had a gun. They held Gilley in the parking lot until sheriff's deputies could get there.
Drop it! Drop it! Call the police. Throw the knife that way! Throw it away! Throw it away! Hey, he hasn't dropped it. Lay down!
So you can see that the veteran was giving him instructions: fold the knife, throw it away, get down. This guy was following all the instructions. This is not someone who is out of his mind. That's my opinion. All right, that's my opinion. I know most of you like to wait until the stream is over to put your comments in the comment section. All right, and that's fine. But I usually like to have these live conversations. There are a group of people who will watch this. Maybe you're watching it right now, and you totally don't agree with my take. You think that my take is equally crude, and it is not what civilized societies do. Civilized societies, if they recognize that this person is insane, he would not be walking the streets. He would be in a mental institution. That's where people like this should be. So when a judge deems someone mentally unfit, the next stop should be a mental institution. I heard some time ago that there was a legislation that basically shut down most of the mental institutions in the US, and all of them were emptied out onto the streets. And that is why cities like California and New York had or have such a rapid increase in homelessness. Okay, so it's as if all of this is engineered to create chaos in the society. There are people who claim that that Donald Trump is an agent of chaos. Well, no, he's not. I don't think he is. He's just disrupting the normal, not the normal, but the way people are so used to politics being done, where people simply lie to you to your face with a smile, and they go behind you and institute laws that over time erode your communities. Now, these 11 people who went to the Walmart to get groceries, and that couple who went out on the town that Saturday night, were not banking on being met by wanton violence. Now, what I'm about to say is, I am aware that it is a dangerous position. Dangerous in the sense that if the couple who happen to be having an altercation decided that since they have weapons, they can draw the weapons to press their point and equally establish their advantage, there are circumstances where all of the people in that scenario, equally armed, equally inebriated, would have created more problems in that situation. All right. So, all right. I'm getting comments, and I'm going to respond to the comments. I don't know if some of these comments are watching earlier, but I'm going to go through the comments and I'm going to respond to them. Okay. So it's tricky. I recall someone, I think is one of the people who wrote the Constitution, who said that the Constitution was written for a Christian community. It is written for a Christian community. There are people who cannot imbibe the US Constitution in their societies because they are not a Christian community. And why did I say that? Because when you look at amendments like the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, it is assumed that you're speaking to people who have deep-seated Judeo-Christian values, the value for life, the value for people who treasure life, not just their own life but the life of others. So when they pull that weapon, it is not done lightly. That's the assumption of the US Constitution. The US state and the society has moved so far away from that reality that these arguments can begin to happen. Can we trust each other to keep and bear arms now? So when you begin to argue whether a constitution is right for your society, even after it was made clear by the founding fathers that the expectation is that the people who keep these laws are a Christian society, it tells you how far the United States as a society has moved away from these values. And that's my observation. Because if I were to simply say everyone keep and bear arms, I'm looking at scenarios where people who do not value human life, who have different values that are not aligned with Judeo-Christian values, would simply pull out their guns. We see it in the inner cities. We see these gangs who keep and bear arms illegally, because those cities, especially in Chicago, who have strict gun laws on law-abiding citizens, but the criminals keep and bear arms. You see what they do in the inner cities. You see what criminals do when they're in public civilian spaces, simply because they are the ones who have the monopoly of force at the moment. You see what they do. You see it with criminals who break into homes where the homeowner cannot defend themselves or isn't even allowed to defend themselves. These are the kinds of things we see in those spaces because these people have evil intentions. Their hearts are dark. They have dark motives. And once they have a gun in their hands, they use it for evil because they do not value human life. All right. So me saying Second Amendment is great to protect these kinds of incidents, the incident with the New York City shooter, the incident in Cincinnati where a couple was attacked by a group of predominantly black people, and then we see this incident at the Walmart parking lot. What do you think is the best approach? I've given you my take, but I am very open to say that my take is very nuanced, because if the people who you're giving the right to keep and bear arms do not value human life and do not value law and order, then you will have the same realities that you catch in the inner cities. I'm really thinking about this. All right. The live streams aren't scripted. They're not scripted. So I intentionally leave them unscripted. I just have the videos that I want to talk about and discuss with you, and then I want us to thoughtfully go through these stories and thoughtfully discuss them. Speaking of discussions, well, I think I've given my take on these 3 stories. So let me know in the chat what you think about Trump's trade deal and whether you think that this is good for the American people. And of course, we've seen the reports coming from the media stating how bad it is for Europe. However, there are some Americans who believe that this is equally bad for the United States. I have given my observation and my take on this. Let me know in the chat. I have a chat I'm going to respond to that is talking about that, and I hope the viewer who posted it stays to hear my my response to his chat. Secondly, what do you think about the violent shooting in New York, the brawl in Cincinnati, and the similarities of those 2 situations where you had people who walked into spaces thinking that they were safe, being attacked by either a mob or being attacked by people who kept and bore arms in their safe space and used those arms against them. Do you think that the gun laws in these places played a part in these incidents? Because we saw what happened at the Walmart. We had 11 people who were unarmed, attacked by somebody who had a pocket knife, and he was only subdued by someone who bore arms and subdued him until law enforcement showed up. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Now I'm going to be responding to the chat right now. And first things first, let me know where you're watching from. Just post it in the chat. Let me know your thoughts. I've asked you several questions. We've gone through the stories. I'm going to respond to the chat, and then I hope that we can have a decent conversation. And let's go. So DJ Zephy said earlier, hello DJ Zephy. I appreciate you watching, and I'm gonna switch over to the big screen. Okay, so thank you for watching and being a part of the live stream. Don't forget to let me know where you're watching from, and I would like to have that on the screen. Joe Rifle, we just talked about the right to keep and bear arms. Joe Rifle said, the trade deal that makes you and me pay 15% more, that's fantastic. I have all kinds of money to give away. The government already takes money from you on a regular basis. However, this is not you paying more based on that. It is the businesses in the United States getting a lifeline. That's the way I see it. It is the businesses in the United States getting a lifeline. Let me tell you what is going on in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have a failed infrastructure. All right, I don't live in Nigeria anymore, but I'll tell you, I lived in there for 45 years plus. Now I'll tell you what it's like. There's no power because all of the equipment has to be sourced overseas. All the industries in the country have broken down because there's no Nigerian-owned manufacturing system for steel and everything else that is needed to run infrastructure. Everything is imported. And because everything is imported, the cost of everything has gone up. And because the cost of everything has gone up, besides the cost, okay, when something breaks, you want to be able to source for the spare parts in days or even hours if possible. But a lot of times the government has to import these parts from China and other countries, and it takes months to arrive. There's power supply is run down. Industries that depend on the power supply are failed. I didn't say failing, they are failed. So now most of the jobs that people are looking for are usually white-collar jobs, and there aren't enough to go around. You need the blue collars. You need the blue collars. The blue collars who work in factories, who make the steel, who do the granular manufacturing. Nigeria's industry is so run down that we import toothpicks. Can't even manufacture toothpicks. We have trees all over the place. We cut down trees and ship them off to China so that China can convert them into toothpicks. That's what happens when your infrastructure is run down because your government doesn't invest in local businesses. If all of the businesses, okay, let's take Michigan. The car industry, the vehicle manufacturing industry in Michigan was so decimated when the trade deals in the 80s and 90s, which favored the Asian manufacturers, began to destroy the local car manufacturing industry. That's a cautionary tale if there was ever one to learn from. So yes, it's uncomfortable. It is. But do you want to continue, riding this gravy train until you find out that you don't have a country anymore because you depend on China to make your toothpicks? This is what happens in Nigeria. So when I see what has happened in my country of origin attempting to happen in the United States, I call foul. I'm going to call balls and strikes and say, look, this is wrong. It is going to hurt for a bit. But you know what? If Trump does what he says he would do by giving rebates to the American people from the tariffs collected, then that would be a good thing. That's what I think. Now, I don't know much, but I can count. So if you spend 15% extra on your groceries and then on your tax return, it's included, and then the government gives you a 15% rebate or a rebate on your 15% spent because of the tariffs, puts it back in your hand. That sounds like a good thing. Don't you think so? So Joe Rifle, that's my take. But like I said, when I covered that story, let's see what Trump does. Okay, let's not make these speculations. The speculations are great, but let's see what Trump does. I have a chat from Cattleman. Okay, so Cattleman says, of course, obviously referring to the story, more Trump BS. The deal won't and can't work. The deal has already been signed, but if the EU goes back on it, then we will see. He says it won't and can't work. A bunch of bankrupts trying to pick each other's pockets. Okay, so here's the Trump is bankrupt, spiel that I keep seeing in the comment section. I'll talk about that in a bit. So he talked about the Trump trade deal, and I appreciate you, Cattleman, for talking about both of them. He talked about the trade deal, and let me answer that one. So the trade deal has to be given time. All right. A deal is a contract. So if the EU wants to sell their products in the United States, they have two options. One, bring their factories to the United States, build their factories there, sell there, get zero tariffs, and make money. Because if you are so desperate to get your products into the United States and sell them, okay, fine, bring your factories over there, or remove your tariffs completely from American products. So that didn't happen. And now they have to pay 15%, not 30%. So let's see how that goes with the Trump administration. Like I said, we're 6 months in and we have a lot to cover. We have a lot to see. If all these deals and all these things that Trump is trying to put out there is going to work. We're going to see if it will work. Okay, so now the line about a bunch of bankrupt people. Look, Trump isn't bankrupt. I did a video a few videos back. It must be 20 videos back or so. Go to my library and you see the video. I did some research, and it turns out that out of Trump's 500 businesses, about 6 went bankrupt. He has 494 businesses still thriving. So during the campaign, the Democrat Party kept running the messaging that Trump was bankrupt. He bankrupted his businesses. He's a failure. The man had 500 businesses, and 6 out of the 500 went bankrupt, and it was a chapter 6 or chapter 9 bankruptcy. So he has 494 left. So it'll be great if we got the facts right and not depend on mainstream media to feed us half-truths, because it is true that a few of his businesses got bankrupt, but no, it didn't ruin him, because he has over 490 businesses left. So let's get all the facts right. All right. And when you see someone desperately trying to do something right, and you devolve into name calling, it's not a great look. Okay, so I would suggest that when we're talking about policy, we stick with policy. If we're talking about morals and personalities, then yes, we can go there, but that's not what we're talking about. I've always said, and if you watch my last stream and other videos, I've always said that I would not put up Donald Trump as a moral example for my children. I have 3 kids. He is not a moral example for my kids. He is not Jesus. Even I don't put myself up as a moral example for my kids. They can watch me while I try to live like Jesus as much as I can. So they can watch me, but I try to point them to Jesus and say, look, watch Jesus. He's the one you should be learning from, not me. Like I have failed many times. So I wouldn't put Trump, as an example. Yeah, so let's not do the whole name calling thing. It gets old really fast. Keep the chats coming, because we're wrapping up, but I would like to talk to you and answer your questions. And Kaluman again talks about the question around the right to keep and bear arms with this final set of stories, with the shooting in New York and the brawl in Cincinnati and the stabbings at the in the Walmart or at the Walmart car park. So Kaluman says there is one gun law. It's called the Constitution. Yeah, and I did mention that. However, if you recall, I did say that there is a challenge with certain people having access to guns, but there are already laws on the books. There are laws on the books. If a man, back in the day when everyone and their mother carried a rifle, I actually heard that there was a time in the United States where boys would come to high school with their rifles and put their rifles in the back of the class. After class, they would pick up their rifles and go hunting. And they didn't have school shootings. So there's clearly something wrong at the moral core of the United States that has to be addressed. If it is not discussed, if it is not mentioned, the Constitution eventually will be just a piece of paper. The spirit of a contract depends on the integrity of the parties that have agreed to the contract. If you do not have integrity to keep your Constitution, you're going to have politicians who will wake up one day and say that the people who wrote the Constitution didn't really mean that. Words have meaning, and I believe that the founding fathers meant what they said. So the Constitution is the foundation. The Second Amendment is backed by the Constitution. The right to keep and bear arms is as American as the soil itself. So I would agree with Cattleman there. Yes, there is one gun law, and that is the Constitution. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel at Crossroads IRL. If you're watching this live, please consider sharing the video, liking the video. I like doing this at the end, but maybe I should do this at the beginning and middle. I already have that on the banner up here, but please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. It helps out a lot. And please consider joining us whenever we go live and watching our videos and doing the same. And one thing that I really want you to please consider doing is chatting when the video is live, because I want us to have these conversations. Thank you, DJ Zephy. Thank you, Joe Rifle. Thank you, Cattleman, for your chats. I sincerely do appreciate your input. And I do appreciate the fact that you guys were decent. You didn't use profanity. I do appreciate that. 5 stars for you guys. So before we wrap up, again, consider the 3 things. Please comment, like, share, subscribe. That's 4 things. Thank you so much. Now I will be going live again on Friday evening, and I hope that you'll be able to join me. If you're watching this after the fact, consider leaving a comment and let me know what you think about these stories. Give me your thoughts, and it's possible that I might just read your comments. And just to throw in a sweet bonus, I'm going to read one comment that came in from the last live stream, just to throw it in, because I have to do this. Okay, I have to do this. I want to I want to be able to do this with my viewers, and I want to share this with you. So here is a comment. Here's a comment. I'm going to hide the chat. So here's a comment coming from a viewer, Will Shrank, and he dropped this comment. He didn't watch the show live, but he said, he was talking about the trade war, because the report from mainstream media called Trump's negotiation a trade war. And he said it's not a trade war. It's an American president negotiating on behalf of the American people. What a concept. And it sounds like he negotiated a tremendous deal for our country. So it's clear that somebody out there likes what Donald Trump did. So I just decided to give Will Shank a shout out. So Will, if you're watching this second live stream, consider leaving a comment and consider watching live the next time you see the notification. Thank you so much for being a part of this live stream. It's a beautiful, warm summer evening here, and I like to hang out with you. I'll be back again on Friday. I hope to be able to create some more videos in between, so look out for more updates and videos. I will be doing my best to create more content in the days to come. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you, and see you next time. And until then, God bless you.